So this was a whole day on the router sled. I'm not going to put you guys through that. I'm going to chop it up, obviously. But this slab had never been on the router sled. I just cleaned it up with a belt sander, and then did the resin pour to try and maximize the thickness of the thing. So this was a real long, drawn-out task. Now, before the fire, I ordered a massive CNC machine, which in theory is still coming. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen now, but this is a process that I've been experimenting with on this router sled for a long time, as you know, and I kind of been learning Fusion 360 in the background, moved away from SketchUp, and started working on ideas of how I could automate this task. Really would be a super efficient way of doing it. If I do get a CNC and it all goes ahead as planned, obviously I'll take you guys along for the ride in depth on that as well. So that could be something in the future. It's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to it if it happens. So slab's been flipped and we're on the underside. So always nerve-wracking when you're doing this on a big slab this long and this wide, keeping the meat on it, as they say, but also you can't just simply stock slabs that are 100mm and machine them down to what the client wants, because removing so much material from slabs, even if they're kiln dried, can really make them unstable if you do move too much too quickly. So small defects on the bottom aren't really a problem, but you do get sometimes these large pockets just where the resin couldn't run under. It's my mistake. I should have took more material off so that there was a kind of no bridge between these two holes on the underside, but it does happen. Just kind of Dremel it out, then re-pour the resin. This is the underside, so we haven't got to really worry, but you do need to get sort of deburr the edges, re-pour the resin, let it set, come back to it. I'll use Glass Cast 3 here, so it's going to set much quicker, and I'll be able to sand this off tomorrow. some of the 5-minute epoxy that I showed you. Some of my Amazon store. If you do want to buy it, I would buy it in bulk because it often is out of stock on the Amazon website and I don't know where else to buy it. So the key is just get it really hot. It gets it really runny. By the time I get to the other end of this table, sanding, I'm at the coarse grits at 120. By the time I get to the other end, this will be ready. Change grits, come back. This will be ready to sand within like 10 minutes really, if you get it warm enough. So you see I heated it up in front of the fire there. I'm going to get the heat gun on it in a minute. That will get rid of any bubbles and really help cure. It's already, I can feel it from the fire there. It's already going quite heavy, thick, which means it's curing quickly. We'll just get a bit of heat on now. Now this is the underside of the table. I wouldn't repair a big mark like that with this type of epoxy on the top because I'm not 100% sure about the UV stability. If there was damage on the top or needed repair, I would use glass cast 3 and I'd have to wait 24 hours. Come back to that in about 20 minutes, it'll be fine. As always with the sanding, there's no secret or magic here, it's just taking your time. I don't want to film me standing over a bit of wood, sanding it for hours on end, but I do sand it on and off for days, working through the grits, and as I always say, anything below and up to 120 grit, you really need to take your time to get those marks out. So stay on the 120s, keep throwing the paper away, it's not expensive, keep using fresh paper. 150 is a good grit to spend a lot of time on, just to get rid of any deep scratches. After the belt sander, now the belt sander was sanded up to 100, and then I started on 120 on the Rotex, and I probably used 5 or 6 120 discs on this. Then I'm on the 150, which is a really good grip for the resin, just to get rid of the deep scratches, but it does cut back nice. Then I go maybe 5 or 6 discs on this, just keep throwing them away, they're not expensive. Then I go up to 180. This is the bottom of the table. I'll spend quite a lot of time on the 180, getting it almost kind of, you'll still see some pigtails from the 180, and I'm going to keep it on the Rotex. But what I do is I go very light. I keep Rotex on, but I'm not pushing down at the end. So I'm just going over it. That will do it on this side, and then I will flip it, start on the other side, and then just before I do the oiling, I'll come back to this, and I'll go over it a few times with the 180. But not on Rotex, and I'll go up to 240 where you see the resin through. Get that so it's nice and clear. Okay, so this box section's even bigger. I believe it's 90/90, so it's really big. We don't have a saw to cut it. Will is an expert with an angle grinder. His full-time job now is fabricating. He's been doing it on and off since he's 15, so over 5 years. He's really, really good and accurate with this kind of freehand cut. And we're tending to do these legs quite a lot, so he gets a lot of practice. Pro to weld up and down, don't it? So as I said, what you saw in the other room, that was just sanding the underside, then the whole process starts again on the top side. The underside has been sanded to about 180, which is good enough to do the first oil, which is good enough for the bottom and for the oil finish this is going to have. So I'm now going to apply the penetrating resin to any of the sapwood areas, softwood areas. This is the Smith's penetrating resin. So once you start grinding the edge of the resin, shaping it, you're probably in for about 5 to 6 hours, I would say, labour on just the edges. So this is a cool little trick. You can drop some water and use a really hot heat gun, just massage the area, and you can quite simply pull out little digs and dents. Walnut's really prone for it. It is a hardwood, but I do tend to dig it by putting something on it, you know, before it's been oiled, so I often do this. So I thought I'd show you this. I did hear that some people commented on this hot glue filler that it sticks to the paper if you sand it. Well, I've not found that at all. So I'll show you here me repairing this end. It's a really quick repair, and then I'll sand it immediately and you can check the paper out. So as normal, I switch over from the Rotex here. Just find this easier to use, just a bit lighter, and I start working through the higher grits. Because there's a big section of resin just in the middle, you can actually polish this to, or sand this rather, to like 1000 in the middle. You don't really catch much of the wood, and if you remember, this edge here has had penetrating resin as well, so it's really, really hard, the wood there anyway. Acetone is a good product to spray on here because it almost dries instantly. You can just see how the resin's shaping up and the marks, and then just wipe it off and carry on working. Get an idea of the size of the thing here. It is absolutely massive. So this is now the underside. I always do that first. This is Odie's oil. I'm buffing it on with a Scotch-Brite pad and a random orbit polisher. It's such a good point when you get here, all that hard work, and you're starting to see the finish. It really does. Odie's oil is so good with the resin and the wood as well. It's so easy to apply. Now you may spot here, the client wants it quite a dark walnut, and I've actually put some pigment in here. I've just used some Toy Safe oil pigment, but Odie's do their own sort of stain pigments, and I've got some of them now as well. They're really good. With Odie's, the less you can put on each pass, the easier it is to get it off, and that is the key with Odie's, getting it all off before you go over to the next stage. So I come across this polisher from Makita, and what's really cool is it has a rotary action, a bit like the Rotex sander where it's in power mode. So it's geared and you can push down hard. So I tend to use it with a Scotch-Brite again after I've applied the oil, let it set for a bit to really grind it into the wood. It's like 1,000 grit sandpaper really with the Scotch-Brite. Okay, so it's epic heavy, fully polished, really delicate, and we've now got to try and get it on the base to mark it and fit it. So 3 lift tables seem to be the way to do it.
It's weird how it changes over.
Okay, so does that look like it's in the middle? Right, be very, very careful, let it down. Slowly. Just about to land on it.
Well, it didn't go like that. Did it?
No.
You look at the gap.
Should we take the pull the tables away so we can have a look?
Go on the edge now. It's pretty level. Like, and at 1 mil on those feet on the bottom because it's massive at the top. So I was worried about it not sitting there.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Okay.
Okay, so Will's put the mounting plates on the base, and you can see here we've got some C-channel which we've got on the legs, so it goes in one hit. I've started doing that on this design. It's really cool, saves doing too many cuts in the wood as well. Slow it down a little bit. And a little bit. Okay, put them on. Okay, that just about wraps it up. Unfortunately, this table was completely lost to the fire. It was sitting on the Rui lift table in the room where the electrical cable, which was the start of the fire, went up, and so completely lost. Everything in that part of the building, the resin room on, nothing at all survived. The base, however, was sitting over by Will's workbench. There was no damage at all to anything in the metalwork area. And the main workshop, there was some water damage to some of the machines, and machines right by the door, or anything right by the door of the pour room, they were damaged or destroyed by the fire. So it's about 6 weeks to 2 months work on a table like this. Now, there was a world shortage of resin just after the fire, which means I had to buy every single glass cast that was available in small quantities from all the shops across the UK, just to be able to remake the table. And I remade it immediately. I could get back in the shop for the client, and this is it in her home. So the base was saved, as I said, and I think me and the client both agreed that these next 2 slabs in the pile just look stunning, if not better than the original. I've got to say that the last 2 months remaking work that was lost to the fire has been some of the most difficult times I've ever had working.